Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Tripowin X HBB Mele, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Linsoul for providing the Mele for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Linsoul, you rock. Alright, so the Mele is a collaboration between Tripowin and Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews. I'll put a link down below for his channel. He did lend his ear to the tuning of the Mele. Inside the box you get a simple little Tripowin case, and you also get a bag of silicone tips. Nice touch. You get 4 sets of tips: extra small, small, medium, and large, or if you want to look at it as small, medium, medium, large, and extra large, or however you want to look at it. But either way, you get 4 sets of tips, which is a nice touch. And then you also get the Mele and this lovely cable. I find that the build of the Mele is exceptional for the price tag, and they are extremely comfortable. And this cable is typical Tripowin. They know how to make their cables, and they do a very good job with cables. I really do enjoy it very much. Ear hooks have just enough tension on them, and then the cable is soft and thin and light, very nicely controlled, very well built. Terminates into a 3.5, connects with 2 pin. The Meles themselves have a nice little black finish. You can also get them in other colors if I remember correctly. Has a good angle, a little bit flat on the back side of the shell, but the nozzle has nice length. The tips that come with it are wide bore, and they're very short. As you can see, they come just to the top of the nozzle. They're very similar to JVC spiral dots, and in fact, I used JV spiral dots when I was doing the review, and I actually prefer the JV spiral dots over the stock tips just slightly. And as you can see, they're very similar. JVC spiral dot here on my left hand, and then on the right is the stock. The JVC has just a little bit more of a lip, and I found that with the sound that the JVC spiral dots added in just a little bit more of treble extension, a little bit more sparkle, energy, and air in the treble, just a little bit. And I found that that enhanced the overall presentation. And so that's the tips that I used. But the stock tips are also very good, and I really do enjoy the stock tips just as well, even though it has a little bit more subtle treble. Fit, these things are phenomenal. I find that with both the stock tips and the JVC spiral dots, that they isolate outside noises quite well. They do a really good job in that, and it kind of puts you in your own little place. It kind of secludes you to the music, and I really do enjoy that. These have a 10mm graphene dynamic driver with a dual cavity. There's 16 ohms and 109 decibels of sensitivity with a frequency response of 10 hertz to 34 kilohertz. And they are extremely easy to drive. I had no problems driving them off of DAPs, dongles, and the desktop, and they were not picky whatsoever. I used all sorts of dongles. I used a Periodic Audio Rhodium, NextDrive Spectra X, Xduo Link 2021, and several others, and it played very well with it. Also, I used it on the desktop with the Mytek Liberty, and also the Headamp GSX Mini, the Drop THX 1 linear, and also the Sauvage A10H. Had no problems whatsoever running the Mele off of any of those, and they were extremely pleasing. Also used it with DAPs, the Sony NWA105 and the Sony WM1A, and sounded fantastic. Also the Heidi's AP80 Pro. So anyways, how do they sound? These have very good bass. They are slightly elevated in the sub bass, but it has good control. It's got power and authority, but it's controlled. It does a very good job of letting you feel it, but yet not be overpowering in the mix and not to be too much in your face. It just does what it's supposed to and gives you that rumble and that thump and that kick of what it's supposed to sound like and feel like without being dominant and overbearing. It's a very well-controlled bass with good details and resolution. Going into the mid bass, you have enough emphasis there as well. Still very powerful and very well controlled with good details and clarity. Overall, I really do like the bass on the Mele. Going from the upper bass into the lower mids, it is a little bit dipped there and it's a little bit leaner, and I wish it had just a little bit more body to it, but not enough to bleed into either or. And then going from the mids all the way through, the mids are slightly recessed and they are a little bit thinner on the lower end and in the main mids than they're in the upper mids. Lacks a little bit of cohesion there, but it's not a big time offender. This is one of the better done V shapes that I've heard, especially in this price point. And I really do enjoy the overall tonality of the mids, and I find that they have a very nice presence to them. Do wish that they were just slightly more bodied in the lower portions of it to add in a little bit of cohesion and balance, but overall they are very well done. They sound naturally and accurate, and they have a good tonality to them, very good details and retrieval, and there's nice clarity within the mids. The upper mids are slightly elevated, but they're still controlled. They don't go into sharp mode or aggressive mode. They are slightly forward, but not to the point of being in your face, aggressive, and shouty. And then the treble, the lower treble is more elevated than the rest of the treble. The rest of the treble kind of rolls slightly and then goes downward. I find that with the JVC spiral dots that you should get back a little bit of that air and that extension. And so they're not quite as stuffy sounding as they are with the stock tips. I find that the treble has very nice control to it. It never goes into fatigue mode, doesn't get into hot mode or anything of the sort. It just is a very well-pleasing, very kind of laid-back type of sound signature that I really do enjoy. Overall, the Mele is a very just chill, relax, and listen to your music. You're going to get enough details and you're going to get enough resolution for them to be pleasing, but you're not going to do any critical listening with them, but you're going to thoroughly enjoy your music. The soundstage on the Mele is nice and wide. They're not the widest, but they're not intimate either. They're about average, maybe a little bit above. I really do enjoy the width of the Mele. I really enjoy the imaging capabilities of the Mele. I find that they do a very good job of tracking things across the stage, and they also have good depth and layering. I enjoyed them for watching movies and shows and for listening to music and for a little bit of gaming. I found that the Mele was a very capable headphone within, or earphone, excuse me, in the price point for all those things that you would do. And I find that it's very competent in its abilities in the soundstage. When you compare it to the Tin Hi-Fi T2, now the T2 definitely does not have the bass capabilities of the Mele. The Mele has a whole lot more power and a lot more authority there. It definitely has more sub-bass presence, but the T2 has a little bit better tone and timbre. And then in the mids, the T2 has more body and is more cohesive and more balanced in the mids, and also has a little bit better natural tone and timbre. And then in the treble, the T2 is more extended out and more balanced, but the T2 is more neutral in the whole perspective, all the way from the bass, the mids, and the treble. And I find that the T2 is more my preference for overall in the price point, but the Mele is more pleasing and more musical. The T2 is the more analytical and neutral sound. Going into the Blon BL03. Now the Blon BL03, the bass is not as well defined as it is on the Mele. The Mele has better detail retrieval and resolution in the bass, and also is more refined and doesn't have that bloat in the upper bass region that the Blon 03 has. The mids on the Blon 03 are not as refined as well as the Mele. The Mele is more controlled, especially in the upper mids. It does not have that shoutiness and graininess and somewhat harshness that the Blon 03 can have. And then the treble, the Mele is more pleasing and more controlled, is not quite as elevated and as aggressive as it can be on the Blon 03. Stage-wise, the Mele is not quite as wide as the 03, but it does better, in my opinion, with depth and layering. Detail retrieval, the Mele is better than the 03. Also with resolution, the Mele is better than the 03. In my opinion, the Mele is better than the Blon 03 in most regards, and is an upgrade to that, and is just more pleasing and is not as harsh sounding as the 03 can be. Plus, the Mele fits a whole lot better. Tone and timbre wise, the T2 is slightly better. Then you have the Mele, and then you have the 03. I find that they're all very pleasing and fun to listen to. My pick is the T2, then the Mele, and then the 03, but you can't go wrong with any of them. This has been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next videos, somewhere on the screen, subscription links and notification bells. If you haven't already, check those off, and then don't forget to give a thumbs up to the video if you enjoyed it, thumbs down if you didn't, and also check out the links down below for information about Bad Guy Good audio reviews, and also for all kinds of other information where you can purchase the Mele, and where you can contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel, all kinds of good stuff down below. Check out the links down below, and remember to enjoy the music, and honesty is the best policy.